Hello and welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. Here we're talking about actions and inactions of those who shape our national landscape and how they impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim. Today on the show, Adulterated Petrol, federal government's House of Representatives talk tough, say heads must roll. And again, we'll be looking at the Electoral Act Amendment Bill as lawmakers Attorney General of the Federation, Malami, trade blame over delay in presidential assent. In the course of the program, remember, we'll take your questions, but first, subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. I have joining me via Zoom, as always, the maestro himself, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for doing this with me once again.
Yep. So let's start with the adulterated petrol that really set the country, a little bit on fire, kind of, just so to speak. The news and the experience from the importation of adulterated petrol caught Nigerians aback, really. But isn't it unbelievable that in this age and time, our country cannot ensure quality control and effective monitoring of fuel importation?
Yes, I'm really disappointed as a nation, and I feel sad that despite the fact that there's not less than 10 layers of quality control at the NNPC that should check and ensure that petroleum products brought into the country are of the highest quality. This has happened. It's such a massive shame because these off-spec products naturally shouldn't be able to escape the scrutiny of all the testing mechanisms, procedures, and protocols put in place by the NNPC. So what are those testing procedures, mechanisms, and protocols for if they will not be seen to do their job diligently and without compromise? So if more than 10 layers of quality control could be compromised, then I fear for the future of our nation. I really fear for our nation. Corruption is not just going to destroy Nigeria, it's going to destroy us as individuals. Because, as I said on Journalist Hangout, what if it was aviation fuel that was imported into this country and it turned out that the aviation fuel imported was of unwholesome quality and an aircraft, the commercial airliner, ingested this unwholesome jet fuel? Of course, the implication of that is known to everyone. The aircraft will certainly come down and people will lose their lives. Methanol is an additive that is used in the production of gasoline. % of ethanol to be added into petrol. But this particular unwholesome product has has not less than 20% methanol. 20% methanol added to it. So you can see that it's not even a marginal increase over the accepted level. 20% of methanol added to PMS when what is prescribed, what is permitted is just between 2 to 3%. You can see why that petrol was as bad as that. Looking dirty, looking brownish, you know, some of it looked like coffee, black coffee. So it's terrible. But unfortunately, as is always the case in Nigeria, we will hear that heads will roll, but in the end, heads will not roll. And NNPC, in my view, is not best placed to mete out punishment. So when the president says, punish the importer, and the president gives that mandate to the NNPC, I see some seriousness here, because in my view, the NNPC is not best placed to punish anyone for this. Anybody could bring in product, but there ought to be quality control. Whatever is brought in must pass the test of quality by put in place by the NNPC. And I'm saying that there are not less than 10 layers of quality control protocols, quality control procedures put in place by NNPC that were breached in this case. The only way this can happen is if corruption permitted it to happen. So it's just unfortunate. And if we do not punish those who brought this unwholesome petrol into our country severely, then you can be sure that it will happen again. The reason crime is walking on two legs in our country is because we rarely punish crime. We rarely punish iniquity in our country, especially when crime is committed by rich and privileged people. It rarely gets punished. Even if it gets punished, it is usually like a slap in the wrist. Somebody steals so much money and put the lives of people in jeopardy, but what do we see? He gets a life sentence. He gets a life sentence that amounts to a slap in the wrist. So, given NNPC's record as a cesspool of corruption, I do not see anything worthwhile coming out of this. And the House of Reps too says is going to investigate, is going to probe what has happened. What has happened to the probe instituted by the House of Reps and the Senate in respect of the Niger Data Development Commission, NDDC. What has happened? All of the suggestions that they came up with, the recommendations that they came up with, the president refused to implement. And Akpabio is still running the NDDC with a sole administrator, whereas the act setting up the NNPC does not even envisage the possibility of a sole administrator, not to talk of an interim management committee. But we've seen Akpabio use not just interim management committee, but a sole administrator to run the NDDC against the law establishing it. anything happening about this. I hope they can just go ahead to prove me wrong, but I don't see anything worthwhile happening. Right. Ibrahim.
BKO, can you hear me?
I'm just beginning to hear you now. Okay.
Yeah, I'm only trying to quickly improvise the microphone. I think we have a bit of a technical glitch. But let me ask you this question while we're speaking back in here. But President Muhammad Buhari doubles as the Minister of Petroleum, for heaven's sake. Isn't that an indictment on the president's capability of bringing sanity to this petroleum sector? The reason why is the Minister of Petroleum himself.
I oppose the idea of having him as Minister of Petroleum in the first place because I knew that he would not be able to run the place. I knew that he would not be able to even put corruption in check in the oil sector. Many people felt that the president, being an anti-corruption crusader, would simply put an end to corruption in our country. But we can see that such optimisms were far-fetched. So making yourself Minister of Petroleum and watching these kind of things happening, I'm really disappointed. I know that the president has not got the wherewithal to monitor that sector very well. Yes, he's been Minister of, he's been Federal Commissioner of Petroleum in the 70s, but today's Nigeria is completely different to what we had when he was Federal Commissioner of Petroleum. And the level of corruption, I'm sure he has seen the humongous level of corruption in our country at this time, which could not be compared to what things were during the Obasanjo regime when the president served as minister. So I think it's just symbolic in my view that he's Minister of Petroleum Resources. I do not see how much work he's doing there. It's just symbolic in my view, but the truth is, when terrible things happen in that ministry, the president has to take the blame because he made himself minister. So he has to accept responsibility for some of the unwholesome practices going on in that sector.
All right, BKO. The Minister of Petroleum Resources, Timothy Silva, had hinted that the government would look into possible compensations for Nigerians whose automobiles had been damaged by the contaminated fuel. Like, for real, how probable is that?
Again, I don't see how they can do that and do it well. We've had this kind of promises made in the past, and they amounted to nothing. So I don't know, but some lawyers have advised that if you bought fuel from a filling station, you should insist on being given a receipt. So if your car got damaged, you can go to court, and the court will ensure that you get compensated. But even the whimsical nature of our judicial process discourages people from going to court, because they could be on the case for years. So what is the point? Instead of allowing terrible things to happen and then embarking on damage control, the best thing is to not let such things happen. I believe that the oil ministry should now do its best to ensure that this sort of thing does not happen again.
Right, BKO. So the NMDPR authority said that for every 200 liters of the adulterated petrol products, 800 liters of petrol would, with good quality, would be required for the blending that would be done. Meaning that NNPC may need 201 billion naira worth of clean petrol to bring 170.25 million liters of adulterated products imported into the country up to standard. There we go. What's your reaction to this?
But that's the more reason the people behind this should go to jail. Because if we ask them to make reforms, they certainly can't make reforms. The money involved is just too huge. But at the end of the day, we're simply treating Nigeria like a sweet wrap on the floor. We are treating the country like a worthless entity, because people commit crimes against our country and get away with it. They get away with it. So this is the problem. Who is going to pay for that? Pay that huge sum of money? There ought to be retribution of some sort, and the retribution that can happen is for these people to be put on trial for economic sabotage and sent to jail, because they can't refund that money. We can't tell them to bring the money that it will cost us to do the blending that they are talking about, and we cannot simply throw away all of the 300 million liters. We can't throw it away. So we've got to find a way. The more reason why we have to punish.
All right, BKO. So let's change tag. We'll take questions. There are questions already on the YouTube channel. We're just trying to fix some things in the back end, doing a lot of improvisation. But thank God we can still communicate all the same. Let's change tag by talking about the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. What could the AGF, Abubakar Malami, refer to selfish interest? Is it possible that the opinions and interests of INEC, political parties, governors, CSOs, and other public stakeholders in the bill can be considered as selfish?
The truth is, the Attorney General is himself a selfish individual. He's selfish because he's simply to take to please himself and his friends. What, in my view, they do not like is the provision in the Electoral Act Amendment Bill that says those who want to contest elections should resign their positions at least 6 months to an election, or some months to an election. I'm not so certain now. Now, someone like Malami would not want, for any reason, to quit his position, and we all know that he wants to contest for the governorship of Kebbi State, he will not want to give up his position, you know, to then go and contest, because sometimes they contest and they don't win, so they lose all. That is the portion in that Electoral Act Amendment Bill that the Attorney General and others are complaining about. So when he talks about vested interests, he thinks that some of those provisions were put there to stop, to make life difficult for some people. But when you look at this whole thing, people who are holding appointive positions, when they contest election, holding on to that appointment, it gives them an edge over other people. It starts not creating a level playing field. They use the resources of their office. They use the perks of their office as an advantage against other people who are contesting for the same position. Sometimes even security agents are tied to them. So if you know, when you look at it, someone told me that the Attorney General even asked some of the lawmakers that if you were in my position, would you accept to
So the bill seeking to separate the office of the Attorney General from that of the Minister of Justice is already before the National Assembly. Would you say this is unconnected with the overbearing nature of the occupants of the office, and would it possibly reduce their influence in governance? BKO, take your microphone. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I think you were muted.
You know, I said all of these issues have a lot to do with the contest for power within the APC, because within the party, the whole idea of direct primaries came up because some governors hijacked the world congresses of the APC. So the lawmakers felt, okay, in order to make this an all-comers affair within the party, let us go for direct primaries. But the Attorney General and the governors convinced the president to not sign. So this president has refused, has had the electoral bill transmitted to him a record 5 times in 6 years without him giving his assent. I mean, this is just incredible. And the Attorney General is one of the people pushing and seeing how he can mislead the president not to give his assent, because they think that some of those provisions do not favor them. Section 174 of Section 3 of the Constitution says, in exercising his powers under this section, the Attorney General of the Federation shall have regard to the public interest, the interest of justice, and the need to prevent abuse of legal process. So his job is not simply about pleasing personal interests or the interests of a few of his friends. His job is about ensuring that justice is served. His job is about ensuring that the interests, the overriding interests of the generality of Nigerians, you know, is protected. But that's not what we are seeing. We are seeing high stakes politics being played. Some individuals using their closeness to the president to push the president not to give his assent because certain provisions in the bill they see as not in their favor. It's unfortunate that the president is being manipulated in this way.
Wow. BKO, so our YouTube channel. Will sign Mr. Malami override Mr. President. I'm not sure whether you get a point.
Once Malami override the president.
Yes.
What's the question?
That's what he said. Not sure whether the president will sign the bill. If so, he's worried maybe Malami might, override the president.
Oh, you cannot override the president. You cannot override the president, but he can advise the president. And unfortunately for us, for all those concerned about Nigeria having a body of laws that govern our electoral process, the president listens to him. He has the president's ears. So what can we do about that? If he advises the president strongly not to sign, the president will not sign. So that's the unfortunate thing. We want an electoral process that we can all be proud of, But no one is sure that the president will give his message.
Right. Nobody's sure. Casey Frank is bombarding us with a repetition of his question. I'll try to just give him that audience. He's saying it's better for Nigeria to start now, to plan a referendum, because there will be nothing like election in 2023. Does that resonate with you?
Unfortunately, our law does not provide for a referendum. So people talk about a referendum, they need to check the constitution. There's no provision for referendum in our laws. So yes, we have fears about the 2023 election, but Nigerians on their own can begin to express those fears and take steps to ensure that those fears are not confirmed.
BKO, let me take this question before I take some other questions from the top on the first topic. Okay, Fabian Akeze says Malami should never have been appointed as the AGF. He's a politician and should not be in that position. He's the most controversial AGF Nigeria has ever had, maybe after Undercut.
Well, he was the president's lawyer for years, and the president wanted someone close to him for that job. We felt he was the best for the job. Certainly, he's not the best that we can find, but the president chose him all the same. And we've seen the Attorney General take steps that are clearly against national interest. Look at even the case of the soldier that the captain that was arrested for conniving with a bandit to kill policemen who are on an investigative mission and who had arrested the bandits. What the police did was simply to arrest their own men who were part of the racket in inverted commas. They took them to court, and the judge demanded that the army officer and other soldiers listed should be brought before him. And what did we see? Attorney General Malami came to court and directed the police to hand over the matter to him. And that was the last time we heard about that case. It's permitted by law to discontinue any criminal matter you know. But how is he using that power? The answer is blowing in the wind. And we've seen other cases, you know. Well, you just ask yourself, what's going on? Look at how they've been trying to convince the president to pay 3 Nigerians more than $400 million in the name of Paris Club refund.
Yeah.
You know, and governors were saying, look, these guys do not deserve this money.
Right.
They call themselves consultants, but the governors are not convinced that they even did the job in the first place.
Right.
So the president has been advised to pay, but if not for the pressure from CSOs, pressures from journalists, and pressures from governors, the president already given the directive that they should pay. He had to say, okay, hold on a little, you know.
Right.
So we are certainly expect a lot more from our Attorney General.
Right, BKO. Let's quickly take a question from Fabian Akeze on the first topic, where he's asking, the issue of adulterated petrol has been occurring for years, and every regulatory agency looks the other way. The only reason we are talking about this is because the situation is dire, correct?
We've had adulterated kerosene. That one, we hear of such cases regularly. But adulterated petrol up to 300 million liters. I don't think, and as bad as we have seen, I don't think we've ever witnessed that. During the Abacha years, we had the adulterated petrol, but people are still moving their cars with it was smelling. It had this repulsive smell, but people were still able to use it. Because I was in the north at that time, and for a long time we were using it, and we were getting by with it. But we've never had it this bad. You need to look at the color of that petrol and ask yourself. I mean, it just looks like playing with sand and water. You know how dirty it is and all that. That's why this case is different, and the amount of money involved means that we've got to do something about this. There's hundreds of billions of naira involved in this one. That's why it's such a major scandal, and we want to see people punished for this.
Right. That's the thing. I'll be leaving you with this last question, which I'll rather you answer very briefly. Someone is trying to ask, I'm trying to look for the question now. Solution actually saying, BKO, are you sure heads will roll? This is just a political statement that will soon die down soon. Don't you see Nigerians being docile?
I'm not convinced that heads will roll. I'm not convinced. And I said it here that I'm not really sure that heads will roll. I mean, this is Nigeria. Tongue twisting and whistling at the same time. We are used to it. You know, just making a lot of noise, signifying nothing. Impotent boasting, signifying nothing. We are so good at that. And the truth is, corruption is so strong. As we are, I mean, people who are corrupt, they are so well entrenched, they are so strong that as you and I are talking about this, they're already thinking of a way out. And our leaders have this feeling that, look, the attention span of the average Nigerian is short. Therefore, after a while, we'll stop talking about this and face other existential problems. So they are convinced that after a while, nobody will talk about this again. I mean, look at the pantomime matter back then. After a few weeks of noise making on social media, the matter fizzled out. That's the way we roll in our country. So I'm not convinced at all. I have no doubt in my mind that nothing concrete will come out of it. It's such a shame, but that is the country that we have found ourselves. I just hope that someday we will truly begin to behave in the right way in our country. Our leaders go abroad, they take their aids with them, but they don't copy the good things that they do in other lands. It's the negative things that they copy, you know. So it's unfortunate.
Mark Oyide, I think he totally agrees with you when he says, I think it's a great shame that we still import petrol when we have crude oil. We know, suppose they die of thirst when we change everybody. It's everywhere, and there is not enough for us to drink. But I know, just like you always say, you are very optimistic about this country, about things getting better. You're a diehard Nigerian, a patriot. So I believe that you never tell us to give up hope, right?
Yes, we'll just continue to hope that real change will happen. But the signs are not really encouraging. If our refineries were working, if they were not just drain pipes, why would we need to be importing refined crude oil in the first place? Why would we be importing petrol? At least if it was here that it was produced, we'll be sure of the product that our people will use. But all kinds of people bring petroleum products into our country from different countries of the world. And we have seen that even when the NNPC claimed that it's the only one importing, it was actually using third-party elements to bring products into our country. It's a very, very corruption-infested sector.
Well, and that's our show, BKO, for today's edition of Issues with Jide. Special thanks to you, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju, for those insightful analyses, as always.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to our audience. See the program again anytime by subscribing to our YouTube channel, TVC News. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. On behalf of the team, I'm Ibrahim. I'll see you again next edition. Bye for now.